After the unfortunate Capri incident with the cow, I was borrowing my father's Ford Sierra Sapphire when it was available, or even going out for the evening in the Dodge lorry complete with IAB, although I might as well have worn a t-shirt with "has no social life" printed across it. Mainly all I was doing was working and then lurking at home, if the truth be told. I thought it best to again have a car on my own. I started looking through the auto trader and what have you, but in the end, it came to me that maybe I could just drive an old wreck that had turned up in the yard with a bit of test left on it. Not one of my brighter ideas, but it saved money. Well, so I thought anyway. But as we all know, people don't take perfectly working vehicles to scrapyards. Well, not if they're sane anyway. Sterling was a builder and a part time farmer from down in the village. Over the years, this chap with grey hair and a stammer had brought quite a bit of scrap up to me, so I knew him fairly well. Slightly older than my father, he was a friendly enough chap in general, whom I got along okay with. He showed up at the yard gates one Saturday morning in his wife's Ford Cortina Mark 5 estate, with the aim of dumping it with me, the good lady in his life having acquired something much newer now. There were two prerequisites. He was to have the two nearly new tyres back off the rear, and I needed to see him for a drink to cover what fuel was left in it. Seemed fair enough. I jacked the Ford up, tugged the wheels off, and leaving it sat on blocks, gave him a tenner and I drove him back home. When I got back to the yard, my brain started ticking. There was still a couple of months MOT and 3 weeks tax on this blue Cortina estate. I found some wheels off an old Escort with OK tyres, shoved them on the back, and gave it the once over mechanically, whilst ignoring the crusty sills and arches, and drove the thing down to the village shop and back just to see how it went. Seemed OK. People can be real funny about what happens to the cars they dump at scrapyards. Mostly it's because they don't like to think of anybody making a few quid out of them. Due to this, I figured old Sterling might be getting a bit cheesed off with me driving around in it, so I kept away from the area where he dwelled. Murphy's Law and all that played us hand though. I dropped spares off at the local garages in the area most days. Down in the village, I pulled up in the Cortina at the garage, ready to unload Big Pete's required parts, turned round and came face to face with bloody Sterling. Would you believe he was going to be doing some building work there all week, fixing up their outside crapper? The next few days, I delivered there in the lorry instead. Over the following weekend, I had to view a clearance job in the next village. Cruising down a back lane in the sunshine, arm out the window, listening to the radio and enjoying the softness of the velour seats in the old Ford, I passed a row of cottages. There was Sterling, staring at me, whilst Alpin cut his brother-in-law's hedge. I grinned and waved. That evening, I met up with my old mate Jason and a few other lads, decided to head off to a quiet little pub set down by the River Avon. It was a good 12 miles or so from our village, so hardly local. Can you imagine my face when pulling into the car park in the Cortina? I spied Sterling and his wife sat eating a meal and observing our arrival from the pub's beer garden. Surely this couldn't be happening. Over the coming weeks, I saw him in the tyre fitter's yard, coming out of the barber's as I was going in, and at the village hall on polling day. Big Pete took me aside one morning at the garage. Look, Sterling's about to fit a burst over that fucking Cortina. He really thinks you're taking the piss out of him, mate, he confided in me. I laughed and I said I would sort it. Oh, Baldy Farden wanted the spare engine for a Capri he had, so with the tax just about out on the Cortina, I sold it to him to strip for 35 quid, collecting the shell for a scrap a few weeks later on. By then, I was using someone else's almost dead Mark 1 Ford Fiesta. I owned and drove it for about 6 weeks until the stench of gear oil that I had accidentally spilled out of a gearbox in the boot got so nauseating that I had to flog it to a bang eraser. In the weeks after that, I scrapped the Cortina. I never saw old Sterling once, by the way. The cycle of wrecked old vehicles being pushed back into service for a short few weeks of life persisted throughout the rest of that year. I drove everything from an Audi 80 that had been rear-ended and was white but had black doors, and a brown Austin Metro, several Ford Granadas, and a short stain and yet another Cortina estate. This was a car my great uncle Reg had given me. All went well for a week driving round in the day, but when I took it out on the Friday night, exiting the pub near midnight to drive home, I discovered he had robbed all the headlight bulbs out of it. I drove home slowly in the dark, with nothing but the hazards flashing to light my way to bed. Autumn started to erode the late summer days away, and I really needed a decent car for the coming winter. I ended up buying a white Audi coupe from Big Pete down in the garage. The 5-cylinder engine performed well, and it was a revolution after all the trash I had been driving around in the last few months. Hello there. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed this one, would like to hear some more and see some more, please subscribe to the channel. All the best. Take care.